Hello again, music lovers. I'm Robert Fithen, and today I want to talk to you about Psych 69. No, not the kind of Psych 69 where you think you're going to get some mutual gratification and the other person goes, Psych! That's a different. I'm talking about psychedelic rock from 1969, the obscure stuff, the stuff that goes for big bucks and originals, or hopefully you can get a reissue, or maybe just stream it. I've got about 25 albums to talk about, so this is going to be split into two parts. So maybe if I don't get into your favorite obscure 1969 psychedelic rock album on this video, it'll be coming in the next one in a month or so. But let's get started right away with a reissue. I'll be showing some originals as well, but this is one I wanted to show first because I just got this about a month ago. It was actually just reissued about a month ago from Sundays. This is the CA Quintet from St. Paul, and the album is called Trip Through Hell. And as you can see, it used to be rare as hell before it was re-released. Actually, this got re-released, I want to say about 10 years ago from Sundays on gold vinyl. This time it's on Hellfire Red vinyl. But yeah, this is a nice album to listen to when you want to just something real trippy, real way out there, not kind of dancing around the house. It starts off with Trip Through Hell Part 1, got an eerie organ, kind of like a horror movie to start things off, and it just bashes right into this drum thing out of nowhere. You got some wordless vocals of just, ah! It kind of sounds like the soundtrack to an old 70s Italian horror movie or something like that. You got a song called Cold Spider in there that is a little more accessible. It's kind of got some way out stuff going on. Smooth as Silk is probably the most accessible thing on here. If there was going to be like a single from this album, it would be the song Smooth as Silk. But yeah, Cold Spider's got some great dual fuzz guitar battle going on with, one on either channel. We love the fuzz guitar. It's abundant on there. And it's right out front and center. The rest of the band seems kind of pedestrian playing in the background on that Cold Spider song. But some groove going on, like I said, the song Smooth as Silk, kind of like maybe a wannabe single on here. The second side, because the first, and then it's over. It's like the first side's like 15 minutes long. This is kind of a short album. So know that before you lay down your money for the reissue here. But I got some great stuff on here. Sleepy Hollow Lake. Again, more just atmospheric type stuff. You want to listen to this at 1 o'clock in the morning with all the lights out and the candles going. It's not the kind of thing you really necessarily drive around to at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But Trip Through Hell Part 2 is kind of a return to that motif of the earlier thing with the wordless kind of although there are some lyrics in this one, but they aren't really anything to write home about. It's really just this kind of an eerie kind of sound, this eerie kind of like foreboding keyboards going on and just drums just flailing everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So it's that kind of thing. It's definitely psychedelic. Like I said, something that could be a soundtrack to an old horror movie from the early 70s. The CA Quintet and Trip Through Hell. Now, keeping in that same kind of vein is this one from White Noise called An Electric Storm. Now, these guys, again, from 1969, all of these albums are, and really pretty obscure, but this actually has a few different releases over the years, so you can actually find 70s reissues of this that aren't too expensive. But yeah, this is adding a little bit of electronic noise, basically, to the psychedelic mix. And this thing, unlike the CA Quintet, which is kind of stays in the same kind of realm, the horror thing with the foreboding, organs and the chanting and stuff like that, and the one song that kind of sounds like the Strawberry Alarm Clock, but on harder drugs. This one is just all over the psychedelic park. I mean, it starts off with this childlike vocal on this song called Love Without Sound. And the guy kind of sounds like very childlike, really kind of annoying, kind of off-putting, really. And it sounds like a little bit like Brian Wilson, like I said, like annoying, like I said. And you probably even want to skip over that. It's this kind of like cringy kind of thing. And then you get into My Game of Loving, which is where the female vocalist comes in. It's a little bit better, and then all of a sudden, the innocence that you thought was, the coyness of the first song, that is just dashed. All of a sudden, we're in a sex orgy out of nowhere, and these sex orgy sounds start coming on the second track. The third one, Here Come the Fleas. It's, again, the female vocalist, but this time she's kind of wailing in this really kind of off-key, kind of grating kind of vocal. Not very pleasing at all. And then the tape tricks start with the speeding up the tape and it sounds like just somebody goofing around with a tape recorder. You know, like kids when in the 60s and 70s, you got the tape recorder, you start, you know, putting your finger on the thing and pulling it and speeding it up and so on. That's what this sounds like. Just some kids playing around. And then number 4 is a Firebird, which finally puts things in more of like a real song. It's kind of a poppy thing, kind of a bouncy, cutesy kind of thing. Firebird, oh, you're so high. I want to touch you, but you're too high up, or whatever it says. So I'm thinking this probably isn't a release for me, this White Noise album. But it does get better on side 2. Side 2 is basically 2 tracks, and I can't even tell where one ends and the other begins. But basically, it's the Visitation, and then, you know, the proper Trip into Hell, an Electric Storm in Hell, basically. So now we've taken 2 trips into hell. But yeah, it's just this, again, the electronic sound effects are beeped in every once in a while and blasted in. But it's this really kind of like horrific music, this really foreboding kind of like eerie sounding stuff. You've got something that sounds like a black mass going on at one point. You've got the flanging drums going back and forth with the speakers. You've got these sounds of the guy being tortured. You've got screaming. You've got, I mean, everything you want out of a psychedelic album that's just way the hell out there. And if you're thinking, yeah, that sounds exactly like a horror movie, actually, pieces of the Electric Storm in Hell were used in the Hammer movie Dracula, 1972 AD. There it is. But yeah, so perfect for a horror movie soundtrack, but it actually was just an album for 3 years before that happened. But yeah, an Electric Storm in Hell from White Noise. Check out side 2. You know, check out side 1 maybe once just for curiosity. But yeah, side 2 is where it's at on here with the 2. With basically it's just one big long trip into hell. Now you might be thinking, really, come on, dude, screaming, sounds of torture, sex orgies, and electric storms in hell. Can we have something a little more conventional? Okay, well, here's the Head Shop. Now, if you've seen a lot of my videos, you might have seen I've talked about this one before. I talked about it when I first got this reissue. 1969, of course, like all these albums. I don't know why I keep saying the year. These guys are from New York City. Again, just the one album with the little shrunken head there in the middle. And I've always loved the term Head Shop, so I had to get the album called The Head Shop when I first heard about this on the old rateyourmusic.com site. And yeah, they're at the Head Shop. It's got a kind of a groove to it, kind of a hard rocking thing going on. Really a short album, though, just like a lot of these are just really short. But also like a lot of the 60s albums, no matter if it's sunshine pop, psychedelic music, just straight up pop music. Got to have some Beatles covers, and there's no fewer than 2 of them on here. They do Revolution and then Yesterday as part of the Opera for the Year 4000. So these guys are thinking that they're way ahead of their time. Yeah, but the Head Shop, the title song is probably the best one on here. There's a couple of cool things about this. Strangely, they do a cover also of Bobby Hebb's song Sunny. You know, Sunny, yesterday my life was... They do that for some reason. They have this song called I Feel Love Coming On, where the guy, coming, I think is the main word in that title, because he's all about it in this song. He's like right there on one channel. So if you're listening on headphones, it's right there in your ear. He's like, it's like, whoa. You almost got to like clean off your ear. I mean, it's like right there. But yeah, a lot of great moments on here. Some really cool stuff like Listen with Your... Third Ear, I think it's called, on here. That's really where the psychedelic stuff starts to come in. The kind of the trippy stuff that you want to hear. Prophecy is another good one like that. But yeah, the Head Shop from New York City. I've talked about it before like in other videos, so I don't want to go on too long about it. But just to say, it's a little more conventional of an album with more of a contemporary, you know, song structures rather than the long trips through hell that we took in the last 2 albums there. Now, this one isn't exactly a mind melter. It's the debut album from Mighty Baby from the UK. And it's more in the vein of just some nice, great acid rock, hard rock, if you will, with some great pop elements in there, too. A little bit of psych is kind of thrown into the mix, but it's not like, you know, mind-blowing or way far out or anything. Matter of fact, it's really accessible and actually kind of danceable in some places. It's got a great groove throughout, some great vocals as well, some nice, sweet, really well mixed in vocals. If you're a big connoisseur of like psychedelic and garage rock, especially from the late 60s, you probably know that vocals can sometimes break the whole deal if they're the, the grating kind of off key type that sometimes will unfortunately be heard, but not here. These guys are no slouches in the vocal department or the band either. They're great. Especially the guitarist. You can hear him throughout the entire album, noodling around, swirling around, just doing the riffs and all kinds of stuff. Some great slide guitar on a couple of the tunes as well, like I'm From the Country. You even got a little honky-tonk piano going on in Trials of the City, another song on here. Just great music all the way through. These guys didn't make it big. They were I think they were the closing act on the first night of the 1970 Isle of Wight festival. So you'd think these guys would have blown up, but unfortunately, I guess as the story goes, and sometimes always goes, label and management didn't properly promote them. They just didn't really have a chance. But listening to them, I think they could have stood shoulder to shoulder with some of the great bands. I mean, the guy's vocals on here, there's two vocalists actually, and one of them kind of has a Jack Bruce kind of sound, and the band is, just like prime cream sometimes. So, I mean, a great album, especially to introduce like someone to that, wants to get more into obscure bands from the late 60s, ones like these guys that didn't exactly blow up and make it big, but doesn't want to get into way far out, freak out music that's going to be like, what the hell is this noise? These guys are very accessible. The album is great. Once again, they're Mighty Baby. Love the album artwork there. I think they could have been big if, the dice had been rolled a different way, but unfortunately they just kind of stood there waiting on the launching pad for a while and never really went anywhere. But now, a lot of people want this album. The one thing that is big about this album is price tag. I've seen this thing on Discogs going from anywhere from $200 to $300. So you might want to stream it a few times before you go paying that much for it. I was lucky enough to get one for far less than that a long time ago. So yeah, Mighty Baby is their name. And like I said, there's even a saxophone in the first song. I mean, you don't usually get that in the garage, acid psych rock realm. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very well produced. Like I said, it sounds like a major act. But unfortunately, that, for whatever reason, that didn't happen for them. But Mighty Baby, I definitely recommend this for somebody wanting something a little more polished, a little more accessible, but still great hard rock. Now, here's one that won't, break the bank or anything. This is one of the more inexpensive ones. This is Joe Bird and the Field Hippies and the American Metaphysical Circus. This is what I would like to refer to usually as like early morning psych. Like, you listen to this at like 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning when the sun's about to come up. It's kind of cultish-like sounding. It's one of those things where you think this is like an introduction record to some sort of, I don't know, commune or something like that, or a cult or something. A lot of chanting-like vocals going on here. It's actually, Joe Bird is the male, and then it's got 3 women in here as well. Vicky Bond, Christy Thompson, and Susan DeLange is the 3 there, and they switch off back and forth with varying results, as it were. I don't know who's who, but one of them sings a lot better than the other 2, that's for sure. But this is a strange listen. This is kind of all over the place and not very well like gelled together. It's kind of hit and miss in some of the songs. It is kind of a very delicate in a lot of places, a very quiet recording. So if you're going to have this on a record, make sure that you have a very nice quality, because you'll hear every little pop and tick. It's such a low recording. It is on Columbia, which is one of the reasons probably why it's not expensive. It's not on an obscure label, but it's on the Columbia Masterworks. So you get a gray Columbia label, whether you have the 361 or the reissue. It's the gray Masterworks label. You don't usually see that unless it's classical music. So I don't know how they pulled that. It probably convinced somebody at the label that they were classical and, they were to be taken seriously. But it's hard to take this too seriously. It ends with a commercial for this place called Leisure World. There's a place where I live where I actually work out called Leisure World, but that's not what Leisure World is here. Leisure World is a retirement home, and it has the professional voiceover guy, Ernie Anderson, doing the voice for it. I think it sounds like a real commercial. And then somebody like, I don't know, like snoring or something in the background. It's bizarre. It's at the end of the last side. It just has some, it'll be going along in its usual, like I said, kind of dreamy, cold, hypnotic vocals. and then all of a sudden it'll switch to like 20s music or like big band music. You know, like a clarinet playing and a da 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 da, you know, that kind of thing. So it's really all over the place. It's not, you know, if you're going to go out and run out and buy your first Psych album from 1969, it probably shouldn't be this one. This is the one you want to get once you've had, you know, 10 or 12 of them or something like that, or 10 or 12 shots or something. But the American Metaphysical Circus from Joe Bird and the Field Hippies. The good stuff is right there at the beginning. You Can Never Come Down is the first song, and that's probably the most popular one on here. You can never come, never come, never come, never, 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 never come down. You know, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just got some weird stuff going on. It's kind of like if you want to get weird, but you don't want to get loud, maybe that's what you're looking for. Then this would be a good one for that. Joe Bird and the Field Hippies, the American Metaphysical Circus on Columbia. Now, if you're like me and you're always searching for psychedelic rock and you've been doing this for years or whatever, you probably noticed that there are quite a few bands that get labeled as psychedelic by either, you know, Wikipedia, Discogs, you know, whatever. And they're really kind of not. You know, that happens quite a bit. Here's an example of that. The Illusion. Doesn't mean it's a bad record. It's just not really psychedelic. I mean, it's a great album, actually, I think. Another one of those obscure bands in an album, their debut from 1969, produced by Jeff Barry. So he was kind of a big songwriter, big industry guy, so probably had a little bit of money behind it. I was familiar with their song, Have You Seen Her Eyes? Because I've had that on a 45 for years and years and years and years. And I just picked this up, recently. And that song, of course, is on here, but it's much longer on the album. It's got a great instrumental breakdown. The drummer is just banging away. This is some great hard rock moments on here, of course. It also has like love ballads and kind of more pop-oriented songs. But that first one, Have You Seen Her Eyes, definitely the best track on here. That's probably why it's a single. But whether this is actual psychedelic rock or not is kind of questionable. It's basically just harder blues rock and like I said, some pop stuff on here. Ballad is in here as well. But yeah, it kind of grooves along pretty nicely, and the band's great. The lead vocalist kind of sounds like Felix Cavalier from the Rascals. He's got that kind of raspy kind of, you know, come on, board the train, you know, that whole thing. So yeah, what's his name? John Vinci, I think is his name. But yeah, The Illusion is their name. I think they had 3 albums out. This, like I said, this is the debut one. And this one kind of rocks along pretty nicely. It's not going to blow your mind or anything. There's slight flourishes, I guess you could call psychedelia on here. You know, I'm all alone trying to find my mind, you know, little lyrics like that pop up, but definitely not way out. But a great record anyway, especially, like I said, that first track, Have You Seen Her Eyes? But, you know, with a name like The Illusion and a title like Have You Seen Her Eyes, I can see why this might be mistaken for, you know, like heavy psych or something like. But they're talking about like the captivating beauty of her eyes. Like, oh man, have you seen her eyes? She's so good looking, you know, that kind of thing. They're not talking about have you seen her eyes and are they dilated and, you know, are they bloodshot or, you know, whatever like that. But The Illusion, nice album. And like I said, not really super expensive if you can find this. So it might be something you want to check out if you're into obscure bands that just kind of get together and rock out in a garage type way or, you know, like a hard blues way, but it's not there's no big psychedelic moments on here like a big trip through hell or something like that. But yeah, The Illusion. Another album that's not quite, you know, extremely psychedelic, but is very affordable. I've talked about this album before in another video, The Collectors from Vancouver, and Grass and Wild Strawberries, Incense and Wine. That's the very first lyric that you hear. Now, She Will-O-the-Wisp is one of their songs that show up on a lot of psychedelic compilations. That was on their first album. This is their second one. I'm showing this because it's, you know, 1969. But yeah, these guys have got some kind of a groovy kind of psychedelic thing going on. It's not too way out. It's basically just a set of songs, and they go from groovy to like a little bit more of a classic rock kind of feel. As a matter of fact, these guys became Chilliwack, if you know who that is, the Canadian band. 1970, they changed their name and dropped all of the psych tropes and just became a full-on rock band named Chilliwack. They had a song that got played in the U.S. called Fly at Night. which is like kind of a mellow acoustic thing. And Fly at Night Till We're Satisfied. It wasn't very good at all. I'm hoping for the sake of Canada that they have better songs than that Americans just weren't privy to. But we're back on talking about the Collectors now with songs like Teletype Click. That's got kind of a nice groove on there. There's a song called 17th Summer. That's a little more exotic, almost like a snake charmer kind of exotic going on that one. But yeah, you'll hear like saxophones in this, even some like noir saxophones, like it's, you know, nighttime and the detective's walking through the sleepy city kind of saxophones. But yeah, there's a different feel to this one. And you know, you've got like vocals that kind of remind me of almost like the Association on some of the songs, kind of the harmonies of the Association. And of course, this is on the green Warner Brothers label, so while that's spinning around, it really reminds me of the Association. But yeah, the Collectors, Grass and Wild Strawberries, their second album. Arzichel, let's talk about these guys. Yeah, isn't that a great cover? I love the vivid color on that. The originals were just monochrome black and white, and then when these were re-released, you got your choice between this really nice deep blue or a really vivid pink. And as I said in my April Fool's Day video, this would be the blue one. Arzichel, yeah, but these guys are, this is a great album as well. Very, very psychedelic in parts of it. Not as conventional as some of the ones I just mentioned. Starts off with, you know, kind of this harsh, you know, well, it starts off kind of just an organ, right? And you're thinking, okay, this is kind of dreamy. We're going to go on a little trip here. And then this just guitar just comes bashing in violently, and you're like, damn. And for the first two songs, it's kind of a rough ride, man. You're thinking, man, it reminds me of like that movie The Trip, where Peter Fonda's tripping out, you know, and he's starting to get a little afraid, and then Bruce Dern has to come in and calm him down, like, it's okay, man, it's okay. The third song on here, Queen Street Gang, is like Bruce Dern. It's here to just calm you down, relax you, reassure you. It's just an album. It's got a nice groove to it. It's kind of quieter. It could have been a single maybe, but yeah, Queen Street Groove is kind of the antithesis of the first two songs. It's gonna, so I love the give and take on this. I love how it's not just, you know, the same harshness and the same kind of distorted stuff all the way through. The fourth track on here, Leg, starts off kind of where the Queen Street Gang left off, with a kind of a quiet, more gentle kind of approach, kind of a groove. You think, oh, this is going to be another one. And then suddenly this drums just start bust, like somebody kicking down a door, just bust in. Suddenly you've got like another dual guitar thing going on with the guitars on either channel just battling it out, and it just swirls into this, just starts to weld into this distortion. It doesn't get so distorted that it just, you know, dissolves into a cacophony or whatever. There's always this kind of underlying rhythm going on, but it's pretty distorted. I mean, it gets to the point where these drums, which have just been pounding it out, even they get drowned out by this just, you know, the organ, the guitars battling it out and all that, and it just swirls into this thing. And yeah, that's called Legs. That ends side one. Side two starts off with something called Clean Innocent Fun. Clean Innocent Fun. I don't know why it's called that. Probably is an ironic title. But yeah, you just have more of the flanging drums, you know, just panning the channels, and just all of the different sounds coming on at the same time. And it's kind of like the first two I mentioned, like the Trips Through Hell with CA Quintet and the Electric Storm in Hell with all of the distortion and whatever. And this is a reissue of this. This came out in 2002. It's an Italian reissue. And, you know, as if with any reissue, the questions are, how does this sound? Is it distorted? And it's always kind of funny. It's like, if you don't know, how do you know if it's distorted? How do you know that that's not the way that the original sounded, or if it's just a modern defect? So you really kind of don't, but I think it sounds great. The vinyl's very quiet. It's got a few big pops in it out of nowhere, but other than that, it sounds great. Again, this is a really hard cardboard cover. I love the color of this this cover here. Again, there's a bright pink one as well, but Arzichel, great stuff from these guys. This is one of my favorites that I'm talking about today. So if you're looking for like one or two to kind of investigate more, I would suggest so far the Mighty Baby and this one. Of course, I would also suggest Gandalf, which I've spoken about, I think, on 2 different videos. So this will be the 3rd time I've talked about this. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, other than to say it's great. There's a lot of Tom Harden covers on here. These guys had a stroke of bad luck. That's probably why they weren't very popular. Capitol Records put the wrong record in the sleeve and then wouldn't refund people, and just said, yeah, pick a different album out, wouldn't replay, or I should say would refund people, would not replace the album. And so these guys had really bad luck. But again, great album. Very, very dreamy. Kind of like a dreamlike thing going on. The vocals had this kind of shimmering, kind of wavering effect on them. And again, I've talked about this one in my Collinsville Pickups video. So if you want to hear more about Gandalf, I don't want to make this video too long, but check out that video, Collinsville, record show or whatever, new record show in town. And I talk much more about this great release from Gandalf. And sometimes German progressive rock can also be thrown into the psychedelic realm, like this one, Phallus Day, the phallus of God, as it were, from Amon Dual 2. And I understand some German. I took German in various levels of school, totaling about, I think, 5 years. I'm really rusty on it because I never use it. I don't really understand a lot of it if someone's singing like they are in parts of this album. And let me just say, when I looked at the lyrics, it's probably better if you don't understand a lot of what is going on in this album. It's trippy music, it's psychedelic, it's a lot of what you could expect from the German progressive rock. And like I said, since this is 1969, this is pretty early. This is kind of a notorious album. A lot of, soundscape type stuff going on, a lot of kind of an eerie thing going on, especially if you don't understand German. Obviously it's a very foreign thing. What is he saying? And like I said, the second song especially, you just don't want to know really what's going on here. Let's just say it's from the perspective of a priest, and this priest is not a very nice person, especially to little girls. And it's very explicit. Phallus Day from Amon Dual 2. But the music's great. The music's great. Concentrate on the music. Concentrate on the music, not so much the lyrics. So that wraps it up for the records. I just got a couple more CDs to show. I do have some psychedelic CDs as well because, like I was saying before, so many of these albums, if you get them in their original thing, they're so incredibly expensive. And, even reissues sometimes, if they're beyond 10 years old, they're going up there in price. That CA Quintet was getting up to like $60 before it was reissued last month. Just the earlier reissue of that. So, and sometimes also CDs can have bonus tracks from like B-sides and outtakes and also people that were in the band when they were in different bands. It kind of sounds similar. So CDs are kind of cool with the psychedelic stuff too. Like this one from the Deviants. You can see here the nun has a popsicle. This isn't so much way out, eerie, spacey kind of psychedelic. This is more like the social commentary going on here. A lot of it in the same vein as like the Fugs or even the Bonzo Dog Band and stuff like that, But it does get weird and strange with the sort of satire. So that's kind of how it fits in with the psychedelic realm of things. They claim to be the deviants who are here to pervert your children. They are beyond rehabilitation. That's one of the things they say. There's a bit on here about how straights have no lips. Have you noticed that they don't have lips? Some of them do, but most of them don't. They don't. Just a very bizarre kind of out of this world type of thing. But like I said, none of the crazy like electric storm type stuff or eeriness or electronic sounds. Just mostly just weirdness based on the social satire from the Deviants. But a very fun listen nonetheless, and very professionally recorded too. These guys from London. Also should have mentioned Mighty Baby is from London. Arzichel's from London. So a lot of these groups come in not only from the UK or from England, but specifically from London. So they are the Deviants. Also the Open Mind from the UK as well. Just some UK freakbeat kind of stuff going on here. Again, very well produced, very full sound with these guys. They got the freak beat thing going on. They've got the, you can dance around to this. You can play it for your little sister or whatever, and she would have liked it too in the 60s. It's not, scary sounding or eerie sounding or way out. The way that they get into the psychedelic realm of things is with the lyrics. They have songs on here that obviously are about acid trips. I mean, talking about having hallucinations and flying colors and your mind is melting and all this kind of stuff. So the Open Mind with their self-titled, again, just some freak beat, great stuff. Groovy music, you can dance around to it, like I said, but not way out musically, more way out lyrically on this one. And that's going to wrap things up for part one, anyway, of my salute to more obscure music from the psychedelic world of 1969. So that's what, 12 or 13 albums. We'll probably do 12 or 13 more in the next video, which is probably coming up in about a month or something. I want to really delve into these albums that I've heard, time and time again, but I always want to listen to them again before I make a video. And, so there's stuff still coming up, like Morgan is still in there. So is The End, that Bill Wyman produced band. You got The Sacred Mushroom. You got Sea Chanties from High Tide. That's going to be mentioned. A bunch more. So if you've got some favorite psychedelic albums, too, from 1969, be sure to mention those in the comments, and we'll see if those show up on the next video as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Robert Fithen, Psychedelic 1969. You got to check some of these out.